Welcome to the Wealth Renegade podcast. I'm your host, Robby Butler. Have you celebrated your financial independence today? St. Louis, Missouri is a small town in one way. As a secondary market, you can meet a lot of your fellow real estate investors. And so today I have on the show David Randolph, my friend from St. Louis. David, thanks for joining us.
Hey, good to be here, Robby. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Real estate is a unique force in St. Louis because we don't have some of the population growth or the job growth that some of the primary markets do, but you've selected that asset class. And I'm excited to talk today about the method you've chosen in order to become more established in your real estate holdings. But maybe back us up a little bit, give us some context for how David chose real estate for both his business operations and his investment vehicle. What was it about real estate and how did you get there?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's funny. My background is engineering, and I had a very successful six-figure job in real estate. And I was basically, climbing the corporate ladder, and I was getting patents for the company, and they were making millions. And I went in for my performance review one time with the head of personnel, and we went through the performance side. And you get to that part about the cookie at the end. What's my raise, right? And the personnel director said, and then this year we don't have any raise for you. And I said, what does that mean, any raise? Well, zero. I mean, zero of what? What does this mean? Well, listen, David, look, you already make as much as the president of the company, and so nobody can get paid more than the president. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, give the president a raise. Okay. And so I found out that I had climbed the corporate ladder, got to the top, and there was nothing there, Robby. A lot of people say they're climbing the wrong corporate ladder. It doesn't matter. You get to the top, there's nothing at the top. And I had to climb all the way back down the ladder and go, what am I going to do now? And that's what led me to real estate. More millionaires are made in real estate, is what they say. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say. It's like, okay, that's what I'm going to pursue is real estate. So that was the catalyst that put me into real estate, ironically enough. And so that's what got me into then learning about real estate, learning about the different systems and techniques and methods and rentals and rehabbing and wholesaling and probate and all kinds of stuff with it. And so at the time, this was 2009, and that was the Great Recession, right? A terrible time in the country. And so foreclosures were prevalent all across the country at that time frame. And so my wife and I said, what can we do to, make money, get out of the corporate world, okay, and help families? And so for us, it was the short sale method of buying houses. The short sale is basically where the homeowner is not able to make their payment, and the bank's going to foreclose and take it back to them, but they can't actually sell the house and pay off the loan because it's, quote, underwater. It means they owe more than what it's worth, is the general definition. So we chose at that time as our initial business model, okay, coming out of the corporate world, to quit my job, okay, and go full-time into real estate, and then use the short sale method of buying houses as our way to get started in our business.
So, what will be fun to talk through today is that how for you, because many of our investors have some exposure to real estate. Many of our listeners do. We learn the value of real assets or hard assets, but you've picked a model and you've built a business on top of it to drive the investment vehicle for you. So that will be fascinating to uncover a little bit. Tell us geographically, are you focused on St. Louis exclusively? Do you have other markets you also pick for acquiring through short sale strategies?
Short sales are federal. It's an identical process all across the United States. So yes, absolutely. You can do them anywhere in the country. Now, I
Wow.
do my personal rehabs of rehabbing the house here locally because I don't want to, try to do a remote rehab. So for me personally on rehabs, yes, I'm doing them here, but I also teach other people how to do this all across the country too and stuff. And so, it can be done in any state, basically.
Hopefully, this is a new question you've never answered before. I look forward to attending one of the workshops you do someday to see what are others thinking about. But because it's a federal process, do you ever grow concerned that the federal process might change and take away some of that opportunity from certain classes of investors. Does that ever occur to you?
Well, it's funny. It's done nothing actually but get better. In 2009 and 10, it was the wild Cowboy Days. Any of your listeners who say, "Oh man, the short sales, I hate that. They were terrible. I didn't like them." Man, yeah, I agree with you. Back then, it was the wild Cowboy Days. I used to have to get a single mother to be the buyer on my house, okay, to get an approval from the bank because they didn't like LLCs. Okay. Today they love us. There's very many rules and regulations that's streamlined it. And when you know what they are, it's like that Ocean's 11 movie with the dancing through the laser beams and the treasure. So it's actually gotten better. It's not really what I call a danger of something going away. It's actually been streamlined to make the process work better in this country. You're not going, I mean, the only thing you'd have to worry about is, does all of the Americans in America have a job and they're not late on their payment? Okay, that's not going to ever happen. That's the only way you'd be worried, if nobody loses their job and nobody has any hardship. But as long as that's there, we have to step in, and the banks have to have someone to help them out. The banks are not in the business of owning the house. Okay, so they need someone to step in and buy it.
Do you spend your time focusing on bank relationships, on owner relationships in order to find your deal flow that causes you to be able to acquire in a systematic method?
That's a great question. There is zero bank relationship. So many things in real estate are kind of related to, can you, like REO properties, houses that are already foreclosed on and the bank owns them. They say, well, look, get in with the asset manager and get the inside. There is no asset manager on a short sale. Every single one is a completely different person that you are negotiating and communicating with. So it's not about you having a secret relationship. It's about you getting a relationship with the homeowner and saying, hey, look, you need help. In 21 days, you're about to lose your home and you're not supposed to be in it. Would you like me to help you and stop that foreclosure and be able to get you time in the house, be able to get the bank to pay you some money when you do eventually leave, and you can save up your money and prevent having a foreclosure on your record, and about 5 other advantages to it. It's that homeowner relationship that you're building.
I'm sure our listeners have heard when you're either applying for more credit or for certain loan products, and they say, have you ever been foreclosed upon? For the people who have to answer yes, it makes it very challenging to gain new traction. And this is exactly why these people look to avoid having to answer yes. It's like saying, do you have a felony in the last 7 years? Or, have you gone bankrupt in the last 7 years? This is an issue. And the short sale is the solution for so many folks. So tell us a little bit more about your business. Is this your sole focus? Do you have other ways that you accrue your investments together?
Well, I started the business model in real estate with the method of short sales as how do I buy my house? So I'm not doing probate, free and clear, tired landlords, any of the other methods, because in 2009, families needed help. So that was what my wife and I chose. And then you need the exit strategy, right? Am I going to do rental? Am I going to do wholesale? Am I, going to do what are various choices? I chose rehabbing. So for me, I meet people, I say, hey, my name's David Randolph. I rehab 5 to 10 houses a year. And one of my claims to fame is all my renovated houses that I put on the MLS for sale, 265,000 and less here in St. Louis, have sold in 7 days or less at list price or higher for over 14 years. They're drop dead gorgeous. You go look at all my, and they're beautiful houses. Now I say, but I have an unfair advantage because I'm making $50,000 to $150,000 gross profit on each house by negotiating a short sale. Okay. So now my business model is moved into rehabbing. So I have a rehabbing business that came out of the real estate of how to purchase the homes with it and stuff. And so I went primarily down the rehab side, not the rental side. Okay. I wanted rentals was long-term wealth. It's great, but do I want the 100,000 profit or do I want the monthly? Okay, right. So I'm sorry. And so that led to a third business. Okay. The third business that real estate led to was basically over $3 million in cash in my IRA retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs. So I became a hard money lender at that point. That's a completely different, business model. So I lend out of my IRA, and that's even unique there too. It's a business, and I choose to lend. My heart is to help new rehabbers. So I give them the money to buy it, the money to fix it, the money for the points, the money for the monthly interest payments. They need $0. It's all paid back when they sell the house on the HUD statement or refinance me out with a local bank. So then that, grew into that business model there. And there's a lot that comes with that. People can, text LEND to my phone number, lend and get the 4-page document. And I lend all across the country. And it's just for new people to get started. And there's a lot of stuff that comes with it. But then that also led to another business model that started over the past 5 years was people that know me said, hey, Dave, you got to start teaching other people how to do short sales. So 5 years ago, I started teaching people. So now I have a C corporation. All this is in real estate, but I have a C corporation, an education company now that teaches other people. It's been very exciting for me. All those different businesses, all related to real estate. Matter of fact, one of my students in Chattanooga just this past Monday sold his house on the MLS for 315,000. You can look it up. 315,000 sold in Chattanooga. That was a Fannie Mae short sale that he bought for 174,000. You can look it up in public records, okay? Bought it for 174, sold it for 315. Okay, isn't that
Nice.
amazing? The banks are dumping the houses. Now, you got the smart listeners will say, but wait a minute, what did he do to the house to make it sell for that? Well, I'll tell you what he did. He painted it inside the house and outside for $15,000. That's all he did to the house. The banks are dumping houses now, and I love teaching people how to do that. So I've got multiple businesses, and we haven't even talked about my wife yet, okay? But, just in the real estate space, you can grow lots of businesses, in that area.
Are you watching some of the nationwide trends around contractor availability and how, if as the lock-in effect keeps people in their current homes, which is separate from what you're experiencing on the short sale side, but people are now starting to rehab their current residents more, which typically makes it a little bit more challenging to find the supply of contractors to do the work you need. Are you seeing that effect at all in the rehabs you're doing on a monthly basis?
Oh, absolutely. One of the features and benefits of my lending program I didn't mention was that I actually give you all my contractors,
Nice.
okay? Because that is a struggle for new rehabbers. Now, you still have to get bids and talk to contractors, but if we don't like the bid you get, then my contractors, who are independent contractors, though, they can give you a bid on that house. And absolutely, that is the one of the biggest problems for experienced and new rehabbers is the lack of contractors that you have. And so you really almost have to have a way to kind of train some people, okay? And bring them up. So like handyman type work, it's fairly easy to train somebody with it. So you really have to do a little bit different model than just trying to hire somebody with experience. Because, a lot of times those experienced people are locked in tight with people like me who's doing 10 houses a year. Okay, right, and stuff. And so it is definitely difficult. And even for me, I have an A team and a B team because they could be on vacation potentially, right? Some of the contractors, they are independent contractors, not employees. And so yeah, it is a very big issue with it. But there's always this human issue of what you really do is you kind of drive down to the smaller contractor, the 1 or 2 man show, because what happens is, you know, that they don't have all the business departments and they don't have all the departments they need to run a real business. So they have no sales department. So they work real hard on that job, and the job finishes and like, I don't have another job. I don't have a sales force that brought me other work. So you kind of have to come down, to the smaller, 1 or 2 man show level to on some of your rehabs, some of the work.
Is there a reason most real estate investors find it appealing to go into bigger assets someday. They say, okay, I want to start owning strip centers. I want to start owning, industrial land. What made you double down on the strategy that you now love and teach? What was the thing that made you say, this is it, and I'm going to reproduce this as often as I can?
Well, like you could go into multifamily, you could go into hotels. And I think it was a couple factors was, every time you do that, you have to keep learning something new, okay? And then you have to end up being good at it. And that's supposed to take 10 years or 10,000 hours. And so, yeah, maybe if I was 21, okay, possibly, right? You could get all these things. But then, when you get a system that works, okay, and like I said, I wanted the long-term rentals, but every time I tried it, a real estate agent had a cash buyer or a bank
Mm.
qualified buyer who came in and was able to just pay me off on the house, and I would take that money. So that's why I decided, look, I can still achieve, look, it's about rate of return. I don't need to say I've got a 2,000 unit multifamily thing. If it's returning 3% on my money, why would I want to say that? Let's go for where you're able to deploy your capital. And in the hard money lending side, the rates are very high, in that. And so basically, I can get a rate of return higher than I can in a lot of multifamily in some of the current high interest rate environments.
Are you willing to share what your hard money lending produces for you? What's the rate of
Well,
return
yeah,
you
no,
get?
I can tell you, oh, absolutely, because my rates are the highest in the country. There is nobody that charges more than me. My rates are 8 points, which is 8%, and then 18% per year. So on a 6 month loan, that's half of 18. It's nine. 8 plus 9. Nobody charges more. And the reason is nobody lends like I do. There is no credit check. There is no tax returns, no bank statements. I give you my contractors, my material suppliers, and all my product SKU numbers, and it goes on and on. Like I say, if they text LAND to my phone number, they can get the whole 4 page document with it. And so that rate of return is much higher than I'm going to get in a lot of other, exit strategies with it. And I'm built on my experience of rehabbing. It's funny, what's your risk? Well, the risk is that they pay me back. I make the least amount of money if they pay me back. If they don't and they default and I take the house back as a rehabber, I can finish the house and make your profit plus my interest,
Yeah.
if you walk away from the deal. So you have to just take your strengths and just grow into it, and then look at what is that rate of return. There's nothing magical about hard money lending, or multifamily. I wouldn't fall in love with multifamily and I wouldn't fall in love with hard money lending. It's just that my rate of return is higher in those than other in certain other areas.
David, as we wrap up here, I'm thrilled you shared your approach to the hard money lending because hard money lending is a popular vehicle for the people who find it. And yet, what you're doing is so unique, and you're able to capitalize on your uniqueness. It's a great business lesson to say, what makes you stand out? Where's your yellow tux that someone says, I know that guy, and that guy's unique? How can people learn more? How can they follow along if they're interested in learning more?
Well, hey, I it's funny. I have a website called thedavidrandolph.com. And what happened was someone took out davidrandolph.com and I was heartbroken. Wouldn't you be heartbroken if robbybutler.com was taken by somebody else? And so then somebody said to me, wait a minute, aren't you the David? Yeah. Hey, GoDaddy, give me thedavidrandolph.com. So they can reach out to me there at any time, get lots of information. I also do a short sale 2 hour workshop that for all of your listeners, they can come to it for free. No charge for your listeners, okay? Just text the word intro, introduction, intro to 636 685 2990, and then get in on that workshop that I do monthly. Okay, every single month I do this for people, and no charge for your listeners, and jump in and learn a lot more about short sales, my hard money lending model, and other things, about real estate, market update, and a lot of good stuff in there.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that. And from all of us in St. Louis, if any of our listeners are ever coming to St. Louis, you know where to find David and I. And so, David, great to learn a little about how you selected the method by which you deploy your capital into real estate. And we look forward to attending one of the seminars soon.
Fantastic, Robbie. I really appreciate what you do for everybody else. You got a whole list of podcasts. It's almost like a going to college type thing, right? Okay, years and years. And so I really want to say thank you for your service in doing those podcasts on there. There's a lot of good information in those other podcasts that you have. You bring on people that really know what they're doing. And so I appreciate what you do for us.
My pleasure.